They say that men don't talk, but they are so wrong. Join me, Noel Professor Richards, and my co-host Huey Cuffie every Monday at 6:30 p.m. for Men Talk. We talk about how to live, how to love, and how to lead. So join with us as we talk about everything that men talk about on Men Talk. Mondays 6:30 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise.
You can now see the Men Talk team live on Facebook at Isaac the Promise and YouTube on FBN TV. Sponsored by Dr. Anaya Tony, the Feet Lady at Anaya Health and Wellness Center. Call 360-5166 or 478-7416.
Schools have reopened, but the new normal poses new challenges for parents. Do I vaccinate my children so that they can go back out to school? Some children don't want to get vaccinated, and some of them do. Some children prefer the online classes, and some want to go back out to school. As a teacher, how do I cope with adequately teaching two groups of children, one online and one face-to-face? These are some of the issues we tackle on Men Talk, Monday 27th September at 6:30 p.m. So join me, Noel Professor Richards, my co-host Huey Cuffie, George, and our guest, social and behavioral change communication intervention specialist Salon McDonald. It's School Talk on Men Talk, Monday 27th September at 6:30 p.m. on FBN TV, Isaac the Promise Facebook page, and Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise.
Hey, David, what you now, boy? How you looking spritey so? Just the other day you complaining to me about back pain, chest pain, your foot swell up, circulation, all kind of thing. What you take for that, boy?
Jamal, boy, I went by the Feet Lady, and not just me, I carry the family too. Boy, the family I straight arthritis, kidney problem, diabetes, circulation, acid reflux. You call all of them just now. I had a pinch nerve too, and a cousin with lupus. And boy, the Feet Lady help you with all of that. And Naya Tony, boy, she's no joke. She even helping you if you had a stroke. Call she today, boy. Don't make joke.
Call Anaya Tony, the Feet Lady of Reflexology, today at 478-7416.
Yes, and we say thank you so much to Ayana Tony. Anaya Tony, Reflexology Health and Wellness Clinic. Thank you for your sponsorship of our program, Men Talk. Good evening, folks. Welcome to Men Talk. It is the 27th day of September 2021, and we welcome you to Men Talk. And for those of you who are new, I always like to explain what the program is about. It's a time and a space where we have created for men to do just that, to talk, because we understand that talking helps. Talking builds you. It empties you of what you know, and you can replace it with what you should know. Talking helps to get rid of those things that are on your chest. And talking helps us to understand what we are thinking, what's going on, so that we can better help each other as men. And the program is an interactive program where you, the listener, get a chance to interact with us, ask your questions, make a comment. However, and this is important for those who are listening to the program for the first time, if you are female, we want to let you know that when we do start to interact with you, open up the lines, that we only want men to call in, please. Because the nature of the program is that men, are talking. We want men to talk. We want to encourage men to talk. And we have found that when the ladies begin to talk, then the men don't. And that's not what we want. So we ask you, ladies, please do not call in. Allow the men, whatever men are around, your husband, your boyfriend, your brother, your uncle, your father, son, whoever they are, we want to ask you to encourage them to call in. You, however, lady, you can interact with us by sending us a WhatsApp message. You can take the number down straight away, 275-1981, 275. Do not send us a voice note, send us a text message, 275-1981. That's for the ladies. Men, you can use it too, but we prefer men that you call in. So let's get straight into the program. My co-host Huey Cuffie is here. Huey, good evening and welcome.
Hi, good evening, Professor. How are you doing?
Hi, cool, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, by God's grace.
Wonderful. Any shout out at all to anybody?
A special shout out to all our listeners on Facebook, on Isaac 98.1 Promise, the Facebook page streaming, and as well as the YouTube channel, FBN TV. But yeah, I just want to say a special shout out to you all. And, we're looking at the stream. So from time to time, if you have a question or comment to put there, we could take it from there as well.
Wonderful. Yes. And George, are you there?
Oh yes, live and alive. Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening, Professor Brother Huey. Blessed evening to
Hi,
you.
George.
It's a wonderful, wonderful day, and I'm looking forward to what we have up for tonight.
Mm-hmm. And our very special guest this evening, no stranger to us. He's been here, a few times before, sharing with us his experience, his expertise. And Mr. Salon McDonald, good evening to you, and welcome back to Men Talk on Isaac 98.1 FM. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good evening, Professor. Good evening, Huey. Good evening.
Hi, good evening,
Big brothers, how you all doing? George, good to hear you, brother.
Good to hear you. Good to hear you.
Brother.
Good evening, TNT. It's great to be on Men Talk, as always. Look forward to coming in, getting together with the brothers, and, having a nice chat, being able to share some of what we know, some of what we learn, and to learn some more as well.
Yeah, in anticipation for this evening, I know you guys can't see my face, but I took a haircut because I know Solano's coming with no hair, and I know Huey doesn't have hair as well. Not sure what's going on with George. So I took a haircut today. You won't be able to see it, but I'm just letting you know.
I'm seeing you. I'm seeing you. I'm seeing you on the street. Yes.
Right. Okay.
You're looking good. You're looking good.
I didn't take all the hair off, like you guys, but I wanted to, kind of have a kind of brotherhood among us this evening, so I said, let me do that. Good to see my wife. She's my barber. Anyway,
likewise, mine as well.
Your wife is your barber too?
Yeah. A few hours ago.
What a thing!
Yeah.
I can't boast like that, so I do it myself,
You just do it and call that George. I hear you.
Oh gosh.
Anyway,
He did.
Yes, he did. He went there.
I can't help it, brothers. I can't help it. I really can't. But anyway, we want to talk a little bit about what's happening with COVID-19 and the reopening of schools. School reopened some time ago. Some opened today, as a matter of fact. The Form 1s for some schools open today, and because of course they were waiting on SA results, and then they had the whole registration process. So some may have opened last week, I don't know, but I know there are some schools that open today. But with the reopening of schools, both for the Form 1s and the others, and Form 4s in particular, Form 4s and 5, there's a new challenge. There is a new challenge in that it has been mandated by the government that you will only be able to re-enter the face-to-face classes or come back in if you're fully vaccinated as a student, and that's for Form 4s and Form 5s. And that poses a challenge for the parents, for the children, and for the teachers. Let's talk a little bit about the children firstly. Now, I know for a fact there are some youngsters who don't particularly want to go back out to school. I could tell you my boys, they're glad. They enjoy being, well, it's not homeschool really, but being at home in school, because, there's not that getting up early in the morning and having to get up early and going and being transported to the school and then waiting for pickup and that sort of thing. Just from the bedroom and you can get ready for school. So they're okay, but there are some children who really want to go out to school. They want to go back out to school. So that in itself is a little problem, psychological problem for children, because some of them, they want to go out to school, but they're not able to because they're not vaccinated, and some of them are in Form 1 to Form 3. Then there are those who want to go back out to school, but again, they are not vaccinated, but they want to go back out. And there's a little challenge because their parents may be saying, well, listen, I don't want to vaccinate you. So how does a young man, a young child, or even a young girl, a student deal with that sort of thing? Because there's a pull and tug. You want to go to school, you can't go unless you're vaccinated, but your parents saying no. So that's the first thing I want us to deal with. How do the youngsters manage that situation? How do they get around that? Because obviously you can't pick up and go to school, and you are still under the jurisdiction of your parents. So, I was tempted to ask the question if it is right to put that kind of pressure on them, but I don't know if you guys want to vent here, dear. But let's talk a little bit about the pressure that is on these youngsters, and let's call in our guest, Salon. to start off?
It's an unfortunate scenario. I'll start by saying that, where the pressure is such that it adds to pressure that already exists for a lot of our young people. Being a child or a youth, and I separate the two because of age, interest, and various other things. There are added pressures that weren't there when, as for instance, I was a child or a youth. It's a mandate of the Ministry of Education since 1960, whenever, that you vaccinate any child who has to enter primary school in Trinidad and Tobago. It doesn't matter if it's a public or a private. So that stands as precedent, and I think we even have some legal and policy coverage. However, the pressure that obtains today with various bits of information floating around and parental pressure plus social pressure from live and direct sources, as in relatives. But then you also have the social media and new media platform pressure with various interests and lobby groups trying to grab the attention space for their own intentions. That pressure on a child is difficult. And while sometimes the child or the youngster may be able to say, all right, I ain't taking it on. But then there are elements which add to the stresses. I mean, adults add to the stress of children. That's kind of part of what we do, unfortunately. So one of the things that's important for children is to allow them to be children. The heaviness of that discussion really, isn't fair to put that on a child. There are things which, unfortunately, parents have been abdicating the responsibility for. But part of it has to do with let the child be a child. Yes, you have childish questions, you have musings, you have ideas and thoughts. Ideally, it is incumbent upon the adults in that situation to be clearing up any of the questions that children have. However, if there are online resources, PAHO WHO is one which has a children's section that offers educative strategies for children to understand, the risks, the scenarios, and whatnot. We also have a fair amount of information available on the Ministry of Health website. There's also UNICEF that has been doing a fabulous series where children can access information that's pertinent to their age, where they can access coping mechanisms as well, strategies, so that you can play games and become a child again, distract from all the adult pressure that's being placed. And also TT Red Cross. They've released a number of support packages that support mental and emotional health for children during this period of COVID. And it's specific to COVID because of the fact that it, aids in doing some mental check-ins, which are important pieces. You want to do a little mental check-in and a little mental health check-in to, find out how do you feel, what is going on with you, be able to express some of the thoughts and feelings and pent-up anxieties that you have, so that you're not a big ball of nerves walking out and waking up with the adult need for coffee and sedatives and all that kind of thing. Yeah,
understood. And the thing is, though, what adds to the pressure is the fact that children have access to the internet. And there's so many things floating around out there. There's so many, as you said, Salon, people with their own agendas. And so there's so much information out there. It's difficult enough for the adults, but for a child, having to face that. And then, you're hearing, well, if you get vaccinated, that will happen. And then your parent says, okay, you're going to get vaccinated tomorrow. And that is a pressure, because what you've been exposed to, what you've been reading, what you've been hearing, even from your colleagues, because they would have been exchanging WhatsApp and that sort of thing. So you know what you've been hearing, and then so you're scared, you're concerned, and then your parents says to you, okay, well, I've made arrangements for us to get vaccinated tomorrow, and you have no say in that. That's a pressure for a child. That could be taught here, as a matter of fact. So how do we get those children to? I mean, you just call out some websites and some information, but is that really is that public enough for children to know that these things exist?
It's available. What we need is, as I said way at the beginning, you see, that parental involvement, that elder family member involvement to be able to guide, simply because we have a lot of unsupervised internet use. And unfortunately, with the era of bots and trends and algorithms, what rises to the top is the thing that's been clicked at most or looked at most. So on the parental side and guardian side, we have to be able to guide the children to this and have a very much more inclusive, regime. We have to talk to children because we have to understand that they have anxieties too. For the fact that adults have anxieties that have come out of this. And I mean, I've listened to every possible angle. And the unfortunate part of being, apprenticed to researchers is that you develop this understanding of what research is, not what, you just take in because it suits your emotional comfort or it suits your point of view. And you can take children through a process of sharing with them what the facts are. But you can also listen to what they say and address what the fears are. A lot of these ideas that people have about what will happen are based on A, minuscule data, B, no data, C, fear. And we have to acknowledge that being in the middle of a pandemic of any kind strikes fear into the heart of adults, and we transmit it to children. So in the same way that we do that, we have to be able to transmit some confidence and transmit some care and transmit some comfort. There is no difference between what's happening now and what happened with HIV. Remember HIV in the 80s and 90s? I worked through that, and we had to go through a process of public education and sharing and breaking things into bite-sized pieces. Those of us who are old enough to remember polio, we had to wait until the children were severely affected by polio and you started being born with twisted limbs and joints and spines to be able to understand, look, we had to care for the children as a primary in order for us to move the rest of the society to a place of understanding, solution efficacy and discussing solutions and cures, not with the fear, but not speaking from the fear, but speaking from a place of wanting the knowledge and speaking of a place of admitting there are things we don't know. But there are people that know it.
Now, so let's move on to the parents, because they're the ones that are making the decisions, whether to vaccinate or not, whether to send a child back to school or not. And in the midst of all this information floating about, it might be frightening, really scary as a parent, as someone making a decision, to actually make that decision. And what may even be more challenging is if you have a household where the man and the woman, the husband and the wife have different views concerning vaccination and what should be done with the children or what should be done with them, with the family. And that kind of pressure, that kind of added pressure. And the difference between now and when there was polio or HIV is simply information. And not just information, but variant types of information, information that that causes you to wonder, what is really right? Because too much information is not a good thing, because you have one group saying yes and one saying no, and both groups can justify. And I put them in two groups. There are many different people, but I put them in two groups. So you have one group saying yes, one group saying no, and you have all this information coming at you, and you have to decide for you, your children, your family, everybody. And now you may be thinking one way, and then the government says, the ministry says, because you may want your child to go back out to school, and the ministry says, well, your child cannot come back out to school unless they're vaccinated. You may be one who says, I don't want to vaccinate my child. So all of these pressure is added on you as a parent. And how do we cope with all of this?
One of the easiest first steps is to come to a place in your home where you agree, a consensus with the adults in your home that there's more that you need to know. And that's an important place to get to. Simply because of the fact that you mentioned information and different information. But I also want to input that there's also disinformation. And
Right.
disinformation is also a very dangerous, intentional body of stories that's there to be able to, allow people who have their fears and live on their fears to, put forward their viewpoint and justify it. And I say the fears primarily because if we look as adults at what's happening, good, we have to understand that this moving goalpost that people put up when you're trying to prove a point and you have no real information is a strategy. Good. You can argue with PAHO all you want. PAHO statistics have been the same from day one. You can argue with all of the other, competent sources of the people who actually deal with this on a daily basis. You can then look at the people who say, listen, this will happen to you, that will happen to you, the other will happen to you. And look at how the two present information. What has been the shift? It's, all right, I'm not going to wear a mask because I don't want to wear a mask because wearing a mask is more dangerous than not wearing a mask. Why is it more dangerous? Because you're rebreathing your air. All right, by that standard, every doctor and nurse who has worked an 8 to 12-hour shift in a surgery ward should already be dead. They should be gone because they've been wearing masks from time immemorial. Good? And that's a fact you can check. We understand that there may be comfort levels with wearing masks. So as we say again, seek information. Is it that the disposable masks work for you? Is it that your cloth, homemade, whatever? Look at your fabrics in the same way that you look at every other safety precaution. Good? Everybody doesn't use the same brakes on the car if you own a car. Everybody doesn't buy the same brand of umbrella. Everybody doesn't use the same brand of gloves or whatever the case might be. In the same way that you understand that there is a solution to safety, you look at the options of how best you safeguard your safety. Good, and that's measure 2. Measure 3 has to do with understanding that if you're a parent, you're a spouse, you have responsibilities on you that Joe and Mary or Jane and Mary connected to nobody doesn't have. You have to be able to step beyond what you don't know, step beyond operating from your fear. Because what often happens is people speak from their fear and they speak from their trauma and they speak from their discomfort. Where if you want to speak from a place of knowledge and being a responsible entity within your home, you undertake that responsibility to, first of all, relax, admit you don't know everything, and look at the sources. And as I said before, the moving goalpost thing is something that you are wary of. You're cautious, you're careful. All of a sudden, this person, this doctor you've never heard of before, attached to nothing, publisher of no research, knows for sure that this is whatever this is good. You can debunk that. You can, get rid of that pretty early. This person who has never worked in a medical system, oh, suddenly you got fired from a pharmaceutical company, so you know for sure that what they're doing. No. You have to understand that on a normal basis, if you get into a hospital or on your way to the hospital, you don't want to go to the person they fired. You don't want to go to the place where, listen, we can't attend to you now, but we have an internet expert who will be able to diagnose and deal with your problem effectively. You have to go beyond that. And in dealing with it, you have to understand that you may not want to put certain things forward because you are afraid. It's all right, admit that you're afraid. Just like everything else. Remember the first time you were going to be a parent? Once you're a caring parent, the first thing you're afraid of is you're going to mess it up. So you take due care and attention. You learn how to hold the baby. You learn how to feed the baby. You learn how to hold the baby's head and support. You learn spinal support. And then there are people around you who are sources of support. You don't listen to the person who says, listen, the first thing you do, no matter how small they are, if they make noise, rest to slap on them. You never listen to that person. Why would you listen to such a person now when you have to deal with something that's infinitely more dangerous? You have to also look at making sure that the burden of care that rests in your hands is being handled in as competent and cogent a manner as possible, because you have a burden of care. And that burden of care is not something that you entered into lightly or took up lightly. No. You took some level of preparing yourself. Good? You went to people who have gone there before. You even looked up some things on the internet. You even went into going to relatives who have lots of children and who, have been a part of caring for kids and generational caring for years. Right? The next part is, there are systems that exist to balance off where your fears meet to the brink. The Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health has been in existence. Good? There are public servants, and I dare say, because I know a great many of them, having worked with them through HIV and STIs and other communicable disease education. We have people that have been educated at some of the best universities in the world. And we have that here. So when they establish policy and protocol, that's to ensure that where our knowledge as lay people and citizens doesn't meet the bar, or we don't grasp particular things, they have put policies in place. So when even the naysayers come up, well, oh, it's unfair. Why do you vaccinate the children and not vaccinate the teacher? Because, ladies and gentlemen, the teacher doesn't go home with you. Your child does. Your child comes in, and the behavior of children is social. They touch, they scratch, they bump in, they engage in practices which you remember you did as a child. Remember, hey, listen, handshake, yeah, twa. Your children do that. Good? So it's important for us to be able to protect our children from themselves because of the fact that infectious possibilities go with behavior. And we know that the teacher ain't going to be going around spitting in their hand and shaking, or taking a mask off and balling, ha ha, Rona, Rona, Rona. Good? Your children are going to be doing that. So we have to look at the measures that have been put in place to ensure that the children are safe and that we are safe in return.
Folks, it's 6:58. You're listening to Men Talk on Isaac 98.1 FM. We have Huey Cuffie, my co-host. We have George, and we have our guest, Salon McDonald, today. There were some callers on the line, so I'm going to ask you to call again, even before we bring in Huey and George. So if you were calling just now, I didn't want to take the call in the midst of what Mr. McDonald was saying. So you can call us now, 622-1981, 628-1981. Huey, guys, I hope you don't mind that we take a call before.
Yeah, no problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Hello, good evening. You're on the air.
Yes, good afternoon. Let me load on the phone.
Yes, please. Hello.
Yeah, right. I'll speak to you. All right.
Go ahead.
I've been listening to you all, and I've been listening to this conversation, and half of what you're about to say is correct.
Okay, we're getting some feedback. We're getting some noise in the background.
Okay.
That noise that's from me.
Okay.
I have to look at radio. Yeah, that's probably me about somebody playing some loud music that you just saying.
All right, you go ahead. Go ahead and speak.
All right. And I think when this caller alluded to when they said your co-host had the moving goalpost, then it is strange because we have people here who will say, look, I can't even teach my trade. I don't know what they're doing in school. And all of a sudden, these people are experts in medicine. This is weird because a year ago, you were saying you couldn't keep up with your child. You have no idea what they're teaching them in school. You don't understand it. But all of a sudden, complex medicine, when we're talking about epidemiology, the first time I hear that I was in my life, I didn't even know something like that exists until I started talking about a pandemic and epidemiology and this and all this thing. I was lost. And we don't have people who are experts in this. And I think that is the problem we have. We have a lot of selfish people who are only looking at this whole scenario from their perspective. I have conversations with people a lot during the day, and even during the day I was saying that to someone. I said, you all are not looking at this from the perspective of other individuals. Nobody's telling anybody, as I said to them, if you don't want to take a vaccine, fine. That's your right. But you cannot now say that if for some reason systems are being put in place to say, well, okay, we are trying to prevent a spread of a disease, and to avoid that, we are going to allow certain people that are vaccinated to be here, to do this, to do that. You're saying you don't want to do that. Then you stay by yourself, and we stay by yourself. And there was a time in the Bible when that was done. I actually heard a pastor on the radio preach to that when Jesus came out and said to his people, here what's going on, put a mark over your door. So when I pass, I don't know, this is my people. So I try to understand, if we are Christians, and we have all these things in the Bible that show us where there are things that were done to actually isolate people, to keep them safe, and to protect them from one thing. By the same God, all of us saying that we recognize, we respect, and we serve. How are we challenging God? Because whatever man do, he does by the grace of God. So how are we challenging the Creator's work and saying, well, okay, I don't believe in the science, let's call it that, because any science or wisdom, man, is from God. Man can only attain wisdom and grace to God. So I would really like somebody more intellectual than me in theology to explain it to me. Because as I said, I listen to this every day. I pay close attention to this radio station. And at one point in time, I was tempted to actually say, nah, is this station a station preaching anti-vax? Because when you listen to the tone of some announcers and some of the conversations they seem to carry, one of them actually had me going last night online to look up some information that they were speaking to. Are these individuals preaching anti-vax or not? But gentlemen, I leave it there. I listen offline.
Thank you very much for your call. Let me just deal with the last part, that last statement that you made. I don't know what station you were listening to, but we have taken no position. We promote no position concerning the vaccination or the pandemic, except, what has been the official position of the government. That is, the government advertised on the station telling you to get vaccinated. The announcers are not allowed to give their opinions on that. And we have people who have, different opinions. So I don't know where you would have heard that from, because even as you're saying that, I have other announcers in the studio who are shaking their head and saying, no, this can't be. Not from this station. All right. So I don't know what you're interpreting as being anti-vax position by the station, but we don't have a position on that at all. Our job is to present to you. That's why we are called presenters anyway. We present the information to you and you make a decision. So let's take another call in the meantime. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I'm just wondering,
good evening.
Putting my 2 cents. Good night to everybody on the panel.
Give us a dollar. Go ahead.
I'm saying that we're the church. We are a different group of people. We are chosen differently, and we're looked upon differently by the world. There's no time in the history of the church where the state and the church agreed on anything. And we seem to be following a trend of anything the state says, this is the church. I'm not talking about the radio station, because I've listened and I've never heard anybody take a side with the vaccine or with an anti-vax. And on this radio station, which is Isaac, I've heard Colonel Tyson said he's been vaccinated. I've heard the comedian said he's been programmed that he's been vaccinated. And so sometimes they lean to saying that, okay, you've been vaccinated, you should get vaccinated too. Sometimes it happens in their conversation, in the tone of what they say, but there's no person that really comes up and says, get a vaccine, or says, you go to hell or anything like that, So I'm saying, we're the church. We have to take a different view for a lot of the things that the world takes a view of. There's no time where I've seen scientists profess Jesus is Lord, company for healing. Most of the scientists that are involved in this research, this sort of experimental research with the viruses, they're downright atheists. And for us to take the word of most of these people, it's hard. It's hard for me as a believer having a relationship with Christ, having a relationship with the Holy Spirit, standing on discernment for my decision making, decide to searching the Word of God and knowing what the Word says. I have to now depend on the Spirit of God, who I have a relationship with, in my decision making. And so what I take objection to mostly is that the government is twisting arms, locking necks of people who are supposed to have free choice. It's not that this pandemic or this disease kills everybody. All pandemics result in some measure of death. Just as cancer does, just as HIV does, just as polio did, all these diseases result in a measure of death. I had COVID. I had it in a very bad way. I never went to the hospital. I did go to get my positive test from the Ministry of Health. So I got a positive reading, and I went back home. They sent me home. They said isolate and so on and so on. And I took ivermectin. No, ivermectin for 4 days.
Caller, we have a limited time, caller.
Yeah.
You got your point. I think there are a number of things, just to speak directly to some of the things that you just said. I think we need to be mindful as believers. I'm responding to your.
Hold up, let me just address the caller. 1 second, Huey. Caller, thank you so much. We got what you were saying. All right, so we're responding to you now. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Go ahead, Huey.
Yeah. So quickly, there are a number of believers who are actually in the forefront in terms of in medicine, right?
Amen.
Even in our country. Some of you may not realize it. Some of them I went to school with, who are actually leading, right? The not just the government's response, the nation's response in terms of the pandemic. Very prominent positions. Abroad, in America, the person who is the head, right? The head of the NIH, if I'm not mistaken, is a believer, right? Who wrote a book called The Language of God, was involved in the forefront in terms of DNA and genome, right? So there's a notion that people believe that science belongs to atheists. You'll be shocked to know how many scientists are actually Christians, right? And many of them are frustrated by the level of disinformation that a lot of believers are embracing, simply because of these preconceived notions that if it is government, it must be evil, right? And I think even as what Solon was saying earlier, as believers, we can't operate like that. We can't operate with biases going into a situation before even looking at the fact, before looking at the truth, right? And the thing about it is that the church of all people, you know how John addresses the church in his letters, in his epistles, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John? He speaks about the fact that, we are to embrace the truth as God has commanded us, right? Paul tells Timothy that, the church is the ground and pillar of truth, right? Job in the Old Testament, in talking to his friends who were trying to convince him that he had sinned, he said, do you think that God is going to be pleased with you using lies to try to back him up? So there's a notion that we could be very comfortable embracing lies and misinformation. No, that's the bigger problem that we have here, right? So a lot of believers in this nation, I can tell you, who are doctors, have gotten, COVID, and thankfully we weren't affected detrimentally. But you're just a sample size of one. We know others. I have persons who I was youth leader of, who are dead, right? Who are dead. And so this thing that, just because you got off, others, no, it doesn't hit like that. Thank God, right? Thank God that you weren't affected as badly. But, we have to be careful. And I think it's very important for us to recognize, as was said earlier, that the big difference between now and previous years is that we have reached a tipping point and a critical mass in how information is easily dispersed and in terms of what information comes before us, whether it's through social media and the internet, right? And a lot of what has Solon said, a lot of there's a lot of shifting of the goalposts, right? So the same attitude we have towards this we're very inconsistent or even disingenuous in terms of that attitude. We don't have it other things as well. So we say that we don't believe that science thing, but every day you sit down in a vehicle that is made possible by science, right? Every day, right? You eat food. We talk about, look how the vaccine, people getting adverse reactions, right? And that thing, I don't want to take nothing like that, right? But every day, right? There are people, if they eat peanut butter, they will drop down dead in 15 seconds flat, right? But you still lathering your bread with peanut butter because you know that, look, that is not everybody's going to be affected like that, all right? And also this notion, this notion that we have that I don't put anything in my body that I don't know about, right? But that same, sweet drink you drinking down to wash it down our doubles with, you look at the label and it has words on it you can't even pronounce, but you're drinking it. So the thing about this is a level of inconsistency in our arguments. And sadly, what is happening is that there are a few of us who are taking advantage, right, by pushing positions that are inaccurate. And I want to say this quickly because last time I checked, this is our Christ-centered radio station, right? Biblically speaking, there is nothing in Scripture, right, to suggest that this is the mark of the beast. Okay, so that is something that we have to be mindful of. It is unscriptural. And people are using this as fear. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but one of love, power, and sound mind. So people who barely read the scriptures, who don't even go into the book of Revelation, are being taken advantage by those who may go into once or twice, and they come up with a notion that has no basis. John, when he wrote that, he didn't have vaccines in his head. All right, he was talking to a church then. 7 churches in Asia Minor to deal with a situation. So it's sad as where we are, but everything that we've been talking about is because a lot of us are being driven by fears, by positions, but a lot of time is not information that is credible. So I think that is something I just want us to be mindful of, right? But there are a lot of believers who are involved in medicine. They're leading the charge. Right? And they don't have the mark of the beast. Right? They're not worshiping Satan. They love the Lord. And they're trying to encourage people to do the right, safe thing and the loving thing as well.
Thank you, Huey. This whole thing about the mark of the beast, I thought we were past that. I don't think, I have the impression that we are past that. That people's fears are genuine. And when I say genuine, yeah, we're getting some signals here. So, that people's fears are because people just don't know. As you said, somebody just texting here and talk about information overload. It's because there's so much information coming at you, and you don't know. Yeah. And let me address Salon with this. See, if I'm building a house, and I employ somebody to build my house. So I contracted somebody to build a house. And he's building my house for me. And then some other contractor who, maybe I never heard of him, but he comes and says, listen, if you build a house, Dave, that person build a house, this, so and so will happen. Won't it make me stop and think and wonder, I wonder if what he's saying is right. I'm concerned about what he's saying. Because I know you said, Salon, that, people who you've never heard of before, just, they're out there now and they're saying this would happen and that would happen. But wouldn't that, or isn't it reasonable to be concerned about what the other voices are saying? That's my question to you.
You used 3 words, 2 of which I will draw on. Reasonable. Mm-hmm. Of course you have reasonable fears. Fear is a part of how you deal with issues and thoughts as a human being. There is reasonable expectation that you're gonna, all right, maybe you hear this. However, we have gone beyond reason. And that is where the danger comes in and steps in. We have engaged in a practice of opposing for the sake of opposition. And that is a part of a more complex social issue that has to do with people being willing to give away their autonomy and literally give away the keys to their brain because you don't want to make this hard decision. You want to be able to quote, hey, listen, this fella who was a part of that, but he's not a part of it. If you start listening to that story and listen to yourself say it, you will question yourself because you will realize that you've gone part and parcel away from reasoning. And that's the reasonable part. Of course, you're going to have reasonable concerns and fears. But where you get to the point where people are willing to try things which are dangerous, it will damage your health.
Yeah.
Simply because you want to say, well, you're going against and you know better and this person knows better because it responds with your fears.
Yeah.
You've gone beyond reason. Good. The second part is if we're dealing with an architect and another architect gives you an opinion, it is highly unlikely that a competent architect will give you an opinion that is so diametrically opposed to the other that you would end up in a place where you are trying to toggle between the two. If another architect, and we stay with building, good? Architect draws a plan, has an idea of measurement or whatever else. Another one will have a style difference or an approach difference, an era, an epoch difference. You know, I like Baroque as opposed to I like classic, whatever. Good? Those differences are reasonable, but you are dealing with people who are radically opposed to even logic. And this is dangerous because we already grew up in a society that takes vaccinations. If you attended a primary school in Trinidad and Tobago, you got something called MMR, measles, mumps, rubella. But you got
you have your card, your vaccination card.
Your vaccine card. You got a vaccine for polio, and a vaccine for polio at the time for 70-something% efficacy. Good?
Tetanus, everything.
Yes. You know what tetanus you get? And we go into, you know, the social feelings that we add to this fear. Good, we have this thing about brands and believing that if it's produced here, it's better, produced there, it's better, if produced by this one. I have a brother who's a journalist. He says, listen, vaccines and whatever else, good? Just like sneakers. You could afford Bata, you'll get a Bata. You could afford Nike and Adidas or whatever, you'll get that. The point is, are you going to walk down the road barefooted if you know there's bottle on the ground? No, you won't.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll take another call. Hello, good evening. 622-1981, 628-1981. Those are the two numbers to call. We run out of time, but we want to give you a chance to ask your question. Let's go again. Hello, good evening. You're on the air. Hello,
good evening. Yes, hello, it's me again. I just wanted to say that to Huey that I never referred to the vaccine as being the mark of the beast. I'm not that stupid.
I know you didn't refer to it, I'm just saying that others have been doing it. I didn't say you did it. Sorry about that. I didn't say you did it. I'm just saying the arguments that people are using.
Why take the right of persons away? I have a right, if I say I don't want to take this experimental vaccine, I have that right, and you should maintain that you have the right to take it, and I have the right not to take it if I feel it is not right for me. What I'm saying as well is that there were too much lies all the way from the beginning of this pandemic. There were lies upon lies. There was nothing that was straightforward from the medical fraternity, from the scientists, from people.
What lies are you talking about?
We all know that. That's why the goalpost is shifting. So how can we make solid decisions based on all those lies? What I'm saying,
are we having a conversation? Give me an example of lies that they have been saying, the medical fraternity has been saying.
Many lies.
What lies? Just give me one. Just give me one or two.
There was no gain of function research being done at the Wuhan. It was not the Wuhan lab that this thing came from. It was that this vaccine was already approved for so-and-so use, and then they pulled it back, and then they approved it again, and then there's Fauci wife, and she's involved in approving some of these drugs as well. These are facts. These are not.
Those are not facts. That's not facts. Yeah, I agree with you, caller, that you have a right.
All right, gentlemen, both of you are speaking on the same. Hold up. Caller. All right. Now, I don't know, gentlemen. All right, Mr. Caller.
No,
Caller.
definitely not.
Caller.
I'm saying we should be given the
Caller, if you're not listening to me, I'm going to have to cut you off. All right?
from us.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you so much.
All right. No, I'm not sure if he is hearing you while you're talking, Huey, or if you're hearing him. I don't
It's possible.
know.
Maybe any
Right.
technology.
I think that's it, because I'm wondering, because I'm hearing both of you speaking at the same time.
Sure.
So
Let me just quickly say that the caller is absolutely right, that he has a right to make a choice. Right? But what we don't have a right to is our own facts. Okay? And I think this is the problem that we've been dealing with, is that it's very easy to say something, and then again, what's our source of our information, right? But we have, if you follow clearly, and I think Solomon was alluding to it, so let me just say it. There's, professions have what we call a body of knowledge, right? Just as how the church, over 2,000 years, right, have the apostolic teaching, okay? So even though people may say things, start of churches, we closely adhere to what the early apostles received from the Lord. That's a body of knowledge, right? And even in science, we have a body of knowledge. Project management has a body of knowledge. HR has a body of knowledge, right? Architects, all of them. It's based on tried and true. That which is proven, right? That which is understood, that is reviewed and tested. And so the thing about it is that you have to be mindful of the source that is claiming how to speak and represent. And many times, it is not a source that is validated by others. Okay, but those things that the caller said there, right? Those things, for example, WHO, they were very transparent in terms of giving, emergency approval, right? They have a process, and even at the end of their process, right? After emergency approval, things have been finalized. So they've been very clear on that, and so I think it's very easy and it's very dangerous actually to be able to say things, that really just have a semblance of truth, but it's not really being borne out well. And last thing I just want to say quickly, all right, is that, we have to understand that some of us may say, well, I don't go off on the mark of the beast, or I don't go off on, the disinformation, all of that. I would say the work has already been done. The work has been done because normal right-thinking people who before, right, would have done the research, okay, been very comfortable and would have taken it, they are now having, concerns, right? And so you just need to introduce some element of doubt, and right-thinking people will start to think, okay, that maybe something is wrong here. So it's a very dangerous place that we are in. And last thing I would say, for callers, the church cannot afford to be just neutral. Why? Because life and death. Because there are many people who do not know the Lord, okay, who will die and they face a Christless eternity. So we can't play with that. We can't play with simply, because while we are saying we are neutral and we are not saying anything, guess who is speaking all the time? Those who are given disinformation and misinformation, all right? So, let's be truthful. Let's basically check our information, okay? And let's be mindful who we are speaking to, lest we mislead people down a dangerous path.
Let's take another call. Hello, good evening. You're on the air.
Yes, hello, good evening. I called earlier, and I'm calling back because you all said you would, and I'm not saying the radio station. If you note what I said, there are announcers. I listen to this radio station 24/7. I keep with my radio on this radio station. And what I was saying is last night there was a program between 10 o'clock, maybe 9 to 10. And whomever the person that was on doing that program made some remarks in reference to the government, and the government is bullying people, and in reference Australia. You could look back, because I know you all tape your program. And if you look back to your program last night, you will understand what I'm saying. And the tone that the person was going at indicated to me a stand. So in other words, I'm saying that if the radio station is saying that we do not advocate, then that should be clearly articulated to people speaking on the radio station. Because I turned off my radio, I turned it off immediately. I said, no. And I got up this morning and I was having a conversation with a colleague, and I told them about it. I said, look, let me go on Australia, because you mentioned how Australia only have 1,000 and something deaths. But when you look at it, Australia cut themselves off from the whole world. That's how they manage COVID. And when I started reading what Australia was indicating that is there, how they treating it, that as a citizen, you have to stay outside, you can't come home to visit. Some of the same thing the government was doing here, and people was violently making noise. I was amazed that somebody could reference a country doing the same thing we are doing and turn around and say that our government was being oppressive.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And using that kind of language.
I hear you. Thank you so much. Right, sure. And we will. Sorry about that. We will look into it. If it is as you have said, we tape all our programs, so we're going to listen to it and hear what was actually said, and we will say something on that. Okay. So we're almost out.
What is the issue, Professor? I don't understand. What's the issue there?
He was saying that the announcers. Because I was making the point that we do not encourage anybody, and I was making that point on radio this morning, as a matter of fact, because this thing has caused so much division among us. So we are not pushing an agenda, okay? We are an official radio station. The ministry has their promotion, and we promote it. We don't allow anybody to come on and say, well, the government is this and the government is that. We do not do that as a radio station. So he was indicating that someone or the announcers have taken a position and promote that position. And I'm saying that is not allowed on the station as a presenter, as an announcer. But he was talking about he was referencing some program from last night. All right, so we're going to listen to the program and see what was said, just to satisfy him and maybe others who may be of the same opinion. All right.
I think as a reader, you have to be concerned about that still, from the perspective of, it seems that it's one-sided though. It seems that the only concern for neutrality is when it is going against a particular position, but we're okay when it goes the other way. So I think that is something that you all have to examine, because I've seen a strategy all over the world, right? And people have been fired, for their speaking truth, and I think we have to be careful with that. It's a strategy that you all have to be mindful of in terms of quote unquote trying to be fair. That we actually may be presenting a vacuum for the same children and parents to be struggling with. They're not getting credible responses to a lot of positions out there. So I only hear, for example, I hear people talk about persecution. I actually know people who have been put out of homes because they got vaccinated.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But, so those are things that I think we have to be careful with. It seems that it is a playbook where, we're trying to force some people not to say certain things so that we could feel comfortable saying other things. So I'm just saying
that's another topic for another day that we will, we will get. I'm talking, I'm laughing. These days you can't cough at all, you can't cough, especially in public. You can't cough in here because everybody will start talking. The professor was coughing. We've run out of time, and what I had intended for us to cover, we haven't really covered all of it. Unfortunately, though, next week we have the budget and the budget debate, so we're going to have to put this off for next time. But in closing today, I would like to ask our guests, especially Salon, to make a statement based on what we have been discussing today. I want you to say something to the public of Trinidad.
Let's make a concerted effort to produce a couple of things. Let's produce some positivity, because of the fact that you're in the middle of something which is daunting, which is fear-inducing. Let's produce some positivity. Speak some affirmations into it. I will understand. I will get better at it. Own your emotions and be mindful of where your emotions swing, so that you understand if you're happy, sad, if you feel deflated, and be mindful of the words you use, that you say to yourself and that you say to your children. Yes, you're sad, but don't be swayed to say that you're depressed. Depression is a very different, very serious condition that you don't just delve in and out of. So, speak in terms of what we understand and speak the positivity. Yes, I'm sad now, but you know what? I will get better. And seek solutions. One of the challenges is that we're not seeking solutions. We're just confused, we hurt, we dazed. So, we swaying in the breeze. And I like what he said. It's incumbent as a believer as a holder of the faith, you have a responsibility, and understand you have a responsibility and that duty of care to not just be neutral. You can't be neutral. That's not what your God-given duty is. It is not neutrality. It is to understand the truth. It is to seek wisdom. Seek wisdom, she will protect you. Good? And this is where we want to be able to operate from. Seek the wisdom, seek the knowledge. It's easy to find. Good? And share it across the family, share it across the fence, share it across the entire neighborhood. So, positivity, wisdom, strength.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Salon. Huey, I know we're past the time, but I still want to give you a chance to make a final comment.
Yeah, I just support everything Salon said. I just want to say thank you for coming on the program and really giving us some clear, calm insight into what needs to be done. And I just want to encourage the brethren, the church community, that, we are in an age of deception and delusion. And we cannot fight that battle by embracing tools of deception. Be mindful of the character of people. Always line up, regardless how charismatic people are, with the word of God. And finally, as parents, you, as alluded to earlier by Solon again, you are responsible for your children, right? You have to give care for them, okay? And therefore, do not allow others to seek to misdirect you as to what needs to be done with them, right? So we just pray that God is going to give you insight and wisdom, and be courageous, be bold. Don't be afraid of truth.
Wonderful. George, I know you've been silent all night and I didn't give you an opportunity to really share, so I'm going to ask you to make a closing remark.
Okay. People of God, when Solomon was faced with the daunting task of being the leader of Israel, the one thing he asked God for was wisdom, and all other things were added on to him. But to be able to receive wisdom, the first thing you need to do is to empty your cup. If your cup is overfilled, there's nothing else that you can receive. We need to be able to empty our cup of the propaganda, of the naysayers, of all that we think, and objectively observe the facts and allow God to influence our hearts in the direction in which He would have us go. I love you, Trinidad and Tobago. Have a beautiful and anointed evening.
Well, George, deprive you of making some more meaningful contribution there, boy. Love your closing statement. Thank you so much. Thank you, Huey. Thank you, Salon. We will be in contact again. Blessings to you, gentlemen.
All right, George. Take care. Bye, Professor.
All right.
Good night, family.
Good night. Good night, Good night,
Take care, guys.
All right. And that brings us to the end of Men Talk for today, folks. Sorry we run out of time. This time it is really the shortest hour in the day. It's Monday from 6:30 to 7:30 because there's so much that we want to get accomplished and we never have enough time to deal with it. But we will be back again. As I told you, next week, Monday, is budget day, I believe, and we're going to be having a discussion here concerning the budget. So we're going to have to preempt Men Talk because I know they have females in the discussion as well. So it's not going to be Men Talk for next week. But the following week, we'll be back again. We'll let you know what we're doing that week. So thank you so much. God bless you. Have a great night from us here at 98.1 FM. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Naya Reflexology Health and Wellness Center.
Hey, David, what you now, boy? How you looking spritey so? Just the other day you complaining to me about back pain, chest pain, your foot swell up, circulation, all kind of thing. What you take for that, boy?
Jamal, boy, I went by the feet lady, and not just me. I carry the family too. Boy, the family history with arthritis, kidney problem, diabetes, circulation, acid reflux. You call all of them just now. Had a pinch nerve too, and a cousin with lupus. And boy, the feet lady help you with all of that. And Naya Tony, boy, she's no joke. She even helping you if you had a stroke. Call she today, boy. Don't make joke.
Call Naya Tony, the feet lady of reflexology, today at 478